This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning. Trump and Harris continue their battleground push, now just 2 weeks before Election Day. Following the campaigns, Jennifer King reports.
Long lines at some polling places as more American states vote early.
55 minutes from the time I got in line.
I'm Clayton Neville.
A teen in custody after 5 found shot to death in Washington state. I'm Pamela Furr.
The men known as the Central Park Five before they were exonerated are suing Donald Trump. Julie Walker, New York.
Stocks opened this morning after a mixed day yesterday. Some investors took some profits, sending the Dow down 300 points. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
A Texas man whose execution was halted because of a last-ditch subpoena won't testify in person before lawmakers. I'm Hayya Panjwani.
All ahead on America in the Morning. With just 2 weeks before Election Day, both candidates are focusing on the battleground states, with Kamala Harris trying to win over swing state Republicans, while Donald Trump visited storm-bruised North Carolina. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
The consequences of him being president of the United States are brutally serious. There are things that he says that will be the subject of skits and laughter and jokes. But words have meaning.
With 2 weeks to go in the presidential race a dead heat, the Democratic nominee campaigns in 3 suburban Midwest counties that went for Nikki Haley before Haley dropped out of the GOP presidential race.
What kind of country do we want to live in?
The Kamala Harris events in Chester County, Pennsylvania, Oakland County, Michigan, and Waukesha County, Wisconsin are billed as conversations with Republican Liz Cheney.
We're going to reject the kind of vile vitriol that we've seen from Donald Trump. We're going to reject the misogyny that we've seen from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And we have the chance in this race to elect somebody who you know is going to defend the rule of law. You know Vice President Harris is going to defend our Constitution.
Just a few swing votes in these regions could be crucial. Wisconsin was decided for Biden by just 20,000 votes in the last election. Meanwhile, the presidential race in North Carolina is playing out in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene.
You didn't get the proper support from this administration. They spent their money on illegal migrants. They spent their money. They didn't have any money left for North Carolina. That's not the way it's supposed to work, or other places.
Many volunteers have been displaced, and affected counties have had to change early voting sites. Donald Trump visits the disaster zone near Asheville.
I will never apologize for defending America. I will never apologize for putting America first. I will protect our workers. I will protect our jobs. I will protect our borders. You know, you've had politicians that didn't do it.
North Carolina has a history of split-ticket voting. Trump won the state in 2020 by a margin of less than 75,000 votes.
Our country is being crippled and destroyed by Kamala Harris. Kamala. How the hell did that ever happen? How did that ever happen?
I'm Jennifer King.
More Americans in record numbers are casting their ballots in the presidential election. This as early voting opens in more states. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Some long lines with hefty wait times as early voting begins in 7 additional American states.
55 minutes from the time I got in line.
Early voting opened Monday in Texas, Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, South Carolina, and Idaho.
I just want to get this done at the first chance I have and make sure that nothing happens to stop me from voting. I've voted early here before, and there has been little to no line. I hope it means a big turnout across the board. The more people vote, the better.
I had a chance to speak with some early voters who were pleased to see the big crowds.
We wanted to vote early, and we thought today would be a great day since it's the first day. And we're really happy that there are a lot of people out here.
Yeah, and then were you surprised by the lines?
A little bit. Yeah. Like everybody that's voted here before, it's never been a long line, even on the first day. I think this is a great thing.
Something that's been on my mind for a few months, so I figured I'd get it out of the way.
Democrats will tell you that the early voting numbers benefit their candidates because Republicans typically prefer voting on Election Day. But Republicans point out that it's their party that packs the polling places and votes in person. Time will tell, but early voting numbers are off to a busy start. Clay Jenkins is a county judge in Texas and says there's more excitement this year, it seems, but
sadly, that's driven by fear on both sides, fear of the other candidate. But democracy works best when more people participate, so we want your vote and voice heard.
More states will open their form of early voting in days and weeks to come, with Election Day, of course, November 5th. I'm Clayton Neville.
The latest lawsuit filed against this presidential candidate when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Your national forecast on America in the Morning, beginning in the Sunshine State. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Florida will still have some gusty easterly winds today from a strong area of high pressure to the north and Tropical Storm Oscar to the south. This is producing a rough surf along the East Coast as well as a shower or two. No worries for Florida with this tropical storm generally, as Oscar is expected to stay well to the east of the area and remain well east of the U.S. coastline generally. Outside of Florida, that same high pressure will lead to dry weather through the southeast as well as northward through the Great Lakes, Middle Atlantic, and Northeast. Afternoon highs will largely be in the 70s and 80s. That's about 5 to 10 degrees above average in the southeast and as much as 25 degrees above average in the northeast. And then the storm moving through the Central Plains will continue to open up and weaken today as it moves eastward. It's still going to produce some showers and the occasional rumble of thunder from eastern Iowa and Missouri through much of Illinois and western Indiana. But overall, the rain with the system will be diminishing, and then showers are expected to dissipate quickly later this afternoon. Outside of that storm, the rest of the Central and Southern Plains will have plenty of sunshine today and a very warm afternoon. Temperatures will once again be in the 80s and 90s, and some places are likely to break records, particularly in eastern Oklahoma and Kansas. In the northern plains, there will be a larger contrast as a cold front moves through the area. This is going to bring some showers through eastern Montana into North Dakota early this morning and will continue into northern Minnesota today. Ahead of that front, it's going to remain quite warm with highs in the 60s and 70s, 10 to 20 degrees above the historical average. And then behind the front in North Dakota, it will only have highs in the 40s and 50s. In the northwest, it'll be drying out with sunshine returning. There could be a lingering shower in parts of Washington and Oregon this morning, but otherwise we'll see some cooler weather returning. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Of course, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. A shooting in a Seattle, Washington area home has left 5 people dead. Pamela Furr reports the alleged gunman, a teenager, is in custody.
Homicide detectives are investigating this shooting as a domestic violence event. This according to Officer Mike Mellis, spokesman for the King County Sheriff's Office.
It does appear to be that this is a family incident, clearly a domestic violence incident that involves not only a young man who's now in significant trouble, and it involves firearms, young men and firearms.
Several people called 911 around 5 a.m. Monday local time to report a shooting. Arriving deputies immediately took one teen into custody while another teenager who had been hurt was taken to a Seattle hospital.
They live in the same house, so I'll be clear. The young man that was taken into custody and the other teen that was injured and is now at the hospital, they do reside at that same house. I don't know their relationships. I can certainly surmise that maybe they're siblings, but I can't say that right now. I don't know what the relationship was, other than that they reside at the home together.
5 dead bodies were found. 2 were adults and 3 were young teenagers. Witnesses tell local reporters that a couple lived in the house with their 5 children. The teen in custody is expected to be in court sometime today or tomorrow. So far, there's been no motive reported. I'm Pamela Furr.
Donald Trump facing a new lawsuit, this one from New York's Central Park 5, over defamatory remarks made by the Republican nominee for president. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
The men known as the Central Park 5 before they were exonerated are suing Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, accusing him of making false and defamatory statements about them during last month's presidential debate, where he said,
They said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty.
The group of Black and Latino men were accused as teenagers of raping a jogger in the park and said they confessed under duress, but they did not plead guilty and were exonerated as adults after another man confessed. Also, no one was killed. A Trump spokesman says this is just another frivolous election interference lawsuit. Julie Walker, New York.
Coming up next, major strike end in sight, workers' compensation package, when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Indices tumble. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
The Wall Street rally took a Monday breather yesterday with the Dow and the S&P 500 index each pulling back from the record highs they opened with. Bond yields were higher. Some investors took some profits, but the Nasdaq was in the green yesterday.
Corporate insiders have picked up their selling, so maybe time for a rest. Also, Friday was an options expiration, and often the market can kind of move a little bit more freely and get a little bit jumpier after that happens, at least in the ensuing week.
CNBC's Mike Santoli. Boeing shares were up 3% yesterday. The 5-week-long Boeing strike is closer to an end with a tentative deal between management and the machinists union.
It's a far-reacher contract, that's for sure, that the machinists will be voting on Wednesday. The tentative agreement calls for a 35% raise over the next 4 years. They've sweetened the ratification bonus, bumped it up to $7,000. They're also adding a one-time $5,000 deposit in every employee's 401k plan. And then there is the annual bonus, which originally was not there. Now it's in this offer. Question is whether or not they can get this over the finish line.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Disney and Marvel's Deadpool and Wolverine has overtaken Warner Brothers' Barbie on the list of all-time top money-making films at the domestic box office, now at number 12, although Barbie still outranks Deadpool and Wolverine globally. If you have a retirement account and maybe an S&P 500 index fund in it, your returns may not be so great down the road. Today, you're up 22% so far this year, but Goldman Sachs is forecasting just a 3% annual return on average for the S&P 500 over the next 10 years. That's a big drop from the 13% average for the last 10 years.
The Goldman report does very admirable analysis and math, and they're looking for a reversion to the mean after we've had a period of outperformance. That all makes sense. But 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we didn't have an internet and we didn't know how it was going to change things. We didn't have AI. You know, we've had a GLP-1 class of drugs for weight loss that also seems to address diabetes and a whole range of illnesses. Things advance. And so I get it. And you have to always be cautious in the management of your portfolio. But at the same time, I don't think you can ever bet against the U.S. markets or U.S. economy.
Farr Miller in Washington's CEO Michael Farr on CNBC. On today's watch list, we get a load of earnings reports from General Motors, Verizon, Norfolk Southern Railroad, Canadian National Railroad, Kimberly-Clark, and Texas Instruments.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, ex-con blames Trump. Supreme Court weighs in after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. A Texas man on death row whose execution was halted in the final minutes last week will not testify to lawmakers as planned. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
I really feel like he didn't get due process. He didn't get a fair trial. And we should make sure that he gets that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying turn this guy loose. I'm not saying let him go. Let's just make sure he gets a fair trial and that we use current science in determining what happened with this child.
Robert Robertson last week had been scheduled to become the first person in the United States executed over a murder conviction linked to a diagnosis of shaken baby syndrome. Some lawmakers on the panel believe Robertson did not kill his 2-year-old daughter in 2002. Those Republican and Democratic lawmakers say Robertson was convicted based on faulty and outdated science. Lawmakers wanted Robertson to testify in person at the Texas Capitol, but it was announced that he wouldn't appear in person after objections to transporting him from prison. I'm Hayap Anjwani.
The Supreme Court is saying no to a bid by former Donald Trump fixer Michael Cohen to hold the former president responsible for his being jailed. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
The former lawyer for Donald Trump, jailed for about a year for his role in paying hush money to porn actor Stormy Daniels, was trying to hold his former boss liable for his being imprisoned, saying he was hit with retaliation for writing a tell-all memoir. The justices didn't say why Michael Cohen's appeal was rejected, but current Trump attorney Alina Habba called on Cohen to stop what she called his frivolous and desperate claims. Cohen had asked the Supreme Court to revive an accountability lawsuit that was thrown out by the lower courts. I'm Jackie Quinn.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
A final push toward November on the campaign trail. I'm Clayton Neville.
A White House spokesman says the leak of top secret information is deeply concerning.
We're deeply concerned.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
A Florida Health Department official says the governor's office ordered him to threaten TV stations. I'm Sue Aller.
More details being learned about a deadly Houston helicopter crash. Many in Cuba remain in the dark, and America's top missile defense system now operational in Israel.
There's now an AI that can detect cancer. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
3 legends were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. Here with America in the Morning and today's national forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
A storm moving through the Central Plains will continue to open up and weaken as it shifts eastward today. This will still produce some showers with the occasional rumble of thunder from eastern Iowa and Missouri through much of Illinois into western Indiana. But overall, the rain with the system will be diminishing, and the gusty storms it produced yesterday are not anticipated today. Showers with this system will largely dissipate by late evening. Outside of that storm, the rest of the central and southern plains will have plenty of sunshine today with a very warm afternoon. Temperatures will once again be in the 80s and 90s, with some places likely to break records, particularly in eastern Oklahoma and Kansas. In the northern plains, there will be a large contrast as a cold front continues eastward through the region. This boundary brought showers through eastern Montana into North Dakota early this morning and will continue into northern Minnesota today. Ahead of the front, it's going to remain quite warm with highs in the 60s and 70s. That's about 10 to 20 degrees above the historical average. But behind the front in North Dakota, it will only have highs in the 40s and 50s. Dry and mild weather will also continue through much of the southeast into the Great Lakes, Middle Atlantic, and Northeast as high pressure holds strong over the area. Highs will be largely in the 70s and 80s, which is still about 5 to 10 degrees above average in the southeast and upwards of 25 degrees above average in the northeast. Florida will still have strong easterly winds from high pressure to the north and Tropical Storm Oscar to the south, producing rough surf and a shower as well along the east coast. That's the weather across America. Springfield, Illinois will see a mixture of clouds and sun today with a shower around in the morning and early afternoon, high up to 77. Melbourne, Florida will be partly sunny and breezy with an isolated shower or two and a high of 83. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Presidential candidates are hitting the swing states hard with just 2 weeks to go until the November 5th election. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest from the campaign trail.
At a campaign event in Pennsylvania, Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris was joined by Republican former Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who's been an outspoken critic of Republican presidential nominee, former President Donald Trump.
What the vice president is saying about wanting to be a president for all Americans, caring deeply about this country, those are things that come across very, very clearly and very directly.
It was a busy Monday for the VP, who hit 3 battleground states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. She touched on a number of issues, including guns.
We have been pushing, as a country, I think, a false choice that suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. And that's a false choice. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment. I have talked about the fact both Tim Walz and I are gun owners.
A day after Trump seemingly mocked Harris's comments about working at a McDonald's by serving food at a McDonald's drive-thru, Harris addressed minimum wage.
There is a big difference between Donald Trump and me on a number of issues, including this, where I absolutely believe we must raise minimum wage and that hardworking Americans, whether they're working at McDonald's or anywhere else, should have at least the ability to be able to take care of their family.
Trump hit 3 different sites in North Carolina yesterday, while in Greenville he ripped CBS News amid reports that Harris's 60 Minutes interview allegedly showed a different response to a question than what was broadcast in the full interview.
She gives an answer that was cognitively a mess, right? She gives an answer that was grossly incompetent. They removed the entire answer and put another answer in there. Where the hell? They don't do that with anybody that I've ever heard.
He doubled down on claims that the federal government has not responded adequately to recent storm damage in North Carolina.
When I'm president, North Carolina will get the support you need and deserve, and that is without question. Because you didn't get the proper support from this administration.
The White House again calling his comments misinformation. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
This type of conspiracy theory that's out there, it is dangerous. To your point in your question, it's dangerous, it's unhelpful, and it gets in the way.
While the presidential candidates are front and center in their final push toward November, their running mates are hitting the trail hard too. Harris's VP pick Tim Walz, in fact, spoke at a campaign reception last night in New York City. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Biden administration is purportedly concerned after a leak of U.S. classified documents about Israel's potential military planning for a retaliatory strike against Iran. Correspondent Jackie Quinn has the latest.
As the reports are out there and what we are hearing, certainly we are very concerned by them. They're being looked into. It's being investigated by the appropriate authorities, obviously the U.S. government here, and so I'm going to let them speak to it directly.
A White House spokesman says the leak of top secret information is deeply concerning.
We don't have any indication at this point that there's an expectation that there'll be additional documents like this finding their way into the public domain. But, and the but here is important, we're obviously keenly focused on what happened here, on learning how it happened, and preventing it from happening again.
White House National Security spokesman John Kirby on the online posting of top secret documents about Israel's plans for Iran.
We're deeply concerned, and the president remains deeply concerned about any leakage of classified information into the public domain.
He says they don't know if the information was leaked to the Telegram messaging app or if there was a hack.
That is not supposed to happen, and it's unacceptable when it does.
The documents are attributed to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency, pointing out that Israel was moving military assets for a strike against Iran.
The president continues to have complete confidence in the agencies, right? Whether it's DOD, IC, or DOJ, and he has complete confidence in them. This is being looked into, investigation being done by the appropriate parties. Are we concerned? We are very concerned.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
Court documents reveal that top attorneys for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis penned the cease and desist letters sent by the Sunshine State's health department to TV stations threatening criminal prosecution for airing abortion rights ads. Details from correspondent Sue Aller.
Cease and desist letters were sent to TV stations across the state of Florida to stop playing this ad, featuring a woman who was diagnosed with brain cancer when she was 18 weeks pregnant and needed an abortion to save her life.
If I did not end my pregnancy, I would lose my baby, I would lose my life, and my daughter would lose her mom.
The pro-abortion ad is for Amendment 4, which would add abortion rights to the state's constitution and repeal the state's 6-week abortion ban. Governor DeSantis insists that the group behind the state's Yes on 4 campaign, Floridians Protecting Freedom, is misleading.
Abortions can be performed to protect the life and the health of the mother.
In an affidavit filed on Monday, John Wilson, a former lawyer for the Florida Health Department, said that he was directed by the governor's top legal counsel to send threatening letters under his name. He did so, but then quit 1 week later. A federal judge also ruled this week that the Florida Department of Health cannot take any further action to threaten or intimidate broadcasters for airing the 30-second ad. Wilson's statements directly links the governor's office to the attacks on the state's pro-choice ballot initiative. I'm Sue Aller.
On the road to a cure for cancer, a new breakthrough with AI. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. As the National Transportation Safety Board investigates a deadly nighttime helicopter crash in Houston, a local TV station is reporting that the aviation obstruction lights at the top of the radio tower toppled by the chopper have a history of not working. Correspondent Jennifer King reports. Audio courtesy KTRK.
Firefighters at a nearby station responded to what was described as a terrible scene. 4 people are dead, including a child. No one on the ground was hurt. Police say the Robinson R-44-2 may have struck a cable or a radio tower, which could be seen knocked down in a burned field in Houston's 2nd Ward east of downtown. It's an area that's a mix of industrial and residential buildings. That theory is supported by dramatic CCTV video from a home near the scene that captured a loud sound and fireball as the chopper burst into flames. Officials are urging Houston residents near the crash site to call 911 if they find anything on their property that could help in the investigation.
If you do see components of the aircraft and whatnot, make sure that you don't touch it. Call 911, let us know where it is if you see it in the community, because it'll be a large investigation because of the expanse of the accident.
I'm Jennifer King.
Many Cubans are heading into a 5th day without electricity following a complete failure of the communist island's aging power grid. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
Some Cubans are taking to the streets, beating on pots and pans in protest as a widespread blackout was about to enter a 4th day. And Hurricane Oscar, which hit Cuba's eastern coast Sunday night, didn't help the situation. Mary Carla, a resident of the Santos Suarez neighborhood in southwestern Havana, says they haven't had electricity for 3 nights and the food is rotting. She says 4 days without electricity is an abuse to the children. The protesters say they also don't have water. Cuba's energy minister says he hopes the power grid will be restored Tuesday morning, but he says Hurricane Oscar will bring an additional inconvenience. I'm Donna Warder.
The U.S. military has confirmed its advanced anti-missile system sent to Israel is now operational. THAAD, or the Thermal High Altitude Area Defense System, is able to intercept ballistic missiles. The American hardware adds to Israel's already formidable anti-missile defenses. President Joe Biden said that THAAD's deployment, along with about 100 U.S. soldiers, was meant to help defend Israel, which is weighing an expected retaliation against Iran after Tehran fired more than 180 missiles at Israel on October 1st. The Biden administration also announced that Middle East envoy Amos Hochstein is in Beirut to meet with Lebanon's acting prime minister to discuss Israel's terms, which has U.S. backing, to end their military activity against Hezbollah. America in the Morning continues. Update to a story we've been following. The trial for former Marine Daniel Penny, charged with choking a man to death in the New York City subway, is getting underway. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
A jury is being selected in New York for the trial of a U.S. Marine Corps veteran charged with manslaughter for placing a man in a deadly chokehold on the subway last year. Daniel Penny walked into court with his lawyers, not saying anything. The 25-year-old is accused of recklessly causing the death of Jordan Neely, who was a 30-year-old street performer who witnesses say was acting erratically on the train when Penny moved to restrain him. The case sparked debate and division. Penny is white, Neely black. A handful of protesters were outside the courthouse. Julie Walker, New York.
Harvard researchers have trained their new AI program, dubbed Chief, to read images and detect cancer cells with amazing results. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
Harvard Medical School has unveiled a new AI model called CHIEF, which stands for Clinical Histopathology Imaging Evaluation Foundation, and is remarkably accurate at predicting cancer. CHIEF has outperformed other AI systems, achieving an accuracy of up to 96% in detecting cancer across 19 different types. CHIEF has been trained to look at detailed images of cancer cells instead of the general approach we see in traditional models like ChatGPT-4 or Lava. After training on 44 terabytes of high-resolution medical images, CHIEF has proven very useful for cancer cell detection, tumor origin identification, molecular profile characterization, and prognostic prediction. CHIEF was also proven to be more accurate at separating patients with high and low survival rates and was able to provide accurate insights of different analyzed tissue samples. Bitcoin still hovering around 67,000 and Ethereum at 2,670. Follow me on X at Chuck Palm.
Football and more with America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
A Monday night doubleheader to wrap up Week 7. The Ravens rolled over the Buccaneers 41-31. After spotting Tampa Bay a 10-0 lead, Baltimore scored the next 34 points. Lamar Jackson fired 5 touchdown passes as the Ravens ran up 508 yards of total offense. In the other game, the Cardinals clipped the Chargers 17-15. Kyler Murray ran for 1 touchdown, threw for another, then set up Chad Ryland to boot a field goal to win it as time expired. Week 8 begins Thursday night with the Vikings at the Rams. The Athletic says the Raiders will add quarterback Desmond Ridder off the Cardinals practice squad. Las Vegas will be without Aiden O'Connell for at least a month with a fractured thumb. Gardner Minshew regains the starting job he lost 2 weeks ago, but Ridder started 13 games for the Falcons last year, so he could elevate quickly. Other quarterback news, the Browns' Deshaun Watson is out for the year with a ruptured Achilles. Jaden Daniels is week to week for the Commanders with a rib injury, and Tua Tagovailoa is expected back at Dolphins practice this week. He could play Sunday when the Dolphins face Arizona. He missed 4 games with a concussion. Miami lost 3 of them. Just one game in the NHL last night, the Maple Leafs deflected the Lightning 5-2, 2 goals for William Nylander. Tonight, it's Frozen Frenzy, returning for the only time this season. 16 games, all 32 NHL teams in action. And the 79th NBA regular season tips off with a doubleheader. The Knicks at the defending champion Celtics, then the Timberwolves at the Lakers. That's Tuesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When America in the Morning continues, lawsuits pile up for this music mogul. Country music honors their own. America in the Morning, back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. 7 new lawsuits have been filed against disgraced music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Following the case, correspondent Margie Zaraletta.
4 men and 3 women, all anonymous, have each filed lawsuits claiming sexual assault by Sean Diddy Combs at parties over the last 2 decades. One of the lawsuits alleges that a 13-year-old girl was raped by Combs and an unnamed male celebrity while other unnamed celebrities watched. Another lawsuit says Combs assaulted a 17-year-old male at a New York penthouse party in 2022. Combs' lawyers say he never assaulted anyone, and the lawsuits are clear attempts to garner publicity. His attorneys asked a judge on Sunday to order potential witnesses and their lawyers to stop making public statements because they could prevent him from getting a fair trial, which is set to start May 5th. I'm Margie Zaraletta.
Voters decide who they want for president, and a number of states have important ballot questions. In 2, that includes a minimum wage measure. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Voters in Arizona and Massachusetts are going to decide whether employers should continue to pay tipped workers, like servers and bartenders, a lower minimum wage than non-tipped workers. Arizona voters will decide whether to widen the hourly pay gap between the two sets of workers, while Massachusetts voters will decide whether to eliminate the gap. The ballot measures reflect a growing debate over the so-called sub-minimum wage, which advocates say is essential to the sustainability of the service industry, and detractors say leads to the exploitation of workers. Currently, 7 states require employers to pay all workers at least the minimum wage, regardless of tips. I'm Haya Panjwani.
There are 3 new names in the Country Music Hall of Fame. Kevin Carr reports.
The Country Music Hall of Fame inducted 3 new members in a private ceremony at the CMA Theater in downtown Nashville. I was standing by my window. The Country Music Association created the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1961 to recognize artists and industry professionals who have made outstanding contributions to the genre. After Sunday's ceremony, the Hall of Fame now has 155 members. Guitarist James Burton was inducted as a recording and/or touring musician. The 84-year-old music legend has performed with some of the biggest names in the industry, including Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Roy Orbison, and Glenn Campbell. The Veterans Era Artist category belonged to John Anderson. With 40 singles on the Billboard country charts and 5 of them reaching #1, Anderson called the experience, quote, overwhelming. Finally, Toby Keith was inducted in the Modern Era Artist category. Keith, who died earlier this year from stomach cancer, was honored with a touching musical tribute by Eric Church, who sang a powerful rendition of Don't Let the Old Man In.
Many moons I have lived. My body's withered and...
Multiple artists, including Tanya Tucker, Post Malone, Blake Shelton, Vince Gill, Emmylou Harris, Brad Paisley, and even Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards performed at the ceremony. I'm Kevin Carr.
That's our show for today, Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer, Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.